So hello everyone and welcome to our webcast with Martha Hollowell. Today she'll be speaking about Autodesk Revit Parameters Demystified. So a very great topic. Martha, I will pass things over to you.
Thanks, Corrine, and welcome everyone, and I'm glad that you are here today to listen in on this, or if you are listening to this later, we're glad to have you on here. I am, as Corrine said, going to be talking about demystifying Revit parameters. And I'm sure you've all heard of parameters, but you may not be exactly sure what they are or where they are or why they are and all those sort of things. So I've gathered information about them from several of our training guides to present them in one place. So most of what we're going to be looking at today, as you can see here from my, primarily from Autodesk Revit training guides, there we go. We're using our BIM Management Template and Family Creation Guide, and it's from several places in there. We are also going to have information that's coming from our fundamentals classes, or the training guides there. So architecture, MEP, and structure all include some of this information as well. All right. So in this webcast, we are going to review instance and type parameters that are in existing component and system families. We're going to constrain model elements using global parameters, something new, and we'll create project parameters and combine parameters and schedules, and then we're going to add shared parameters to be used in tags and schedules. I had been planning to also talk about labeling parameters and component families and realized as I was working through this that I'm not going to have time. And Corrine, we can put this on the agenda. I was thinking I had done a webcast on, intro to families before, and I have back in 2014. So I think it's probably time for us to run a new webcast on that, and at that point in time I will, cover the parameters in component families for you there. So first of all, parameters are the I in BIM. So if we talk about building information modeling, we actually need to be talking about parameters. So for example, our wall here, you might be putting a wall in. Sorry, I'm learning to use my little annotation tools. But here we go. Here's our wall down here. We've got a basic wall. You put that in. But what the parameters actually keep information, such as this information in a material takeoff schedule, the material description, the area, the cost, the total cost, all of these are parameters. And so we're going to talk about that information that we need there. So first of all, let's talk about where are parameters found. So every element is made up of properties and type properties. And each item in these dialog boxes are actually parameters. So what level this door is on is a parameter. And all of the different things, the function, the construction type, these are all parameters. You then have parameters are found in tags. So for example, this is a wall tag here. That's a type parameter. The chair tag here, that's probably, it could be either a type or an instance parameter. Parameters are found in schedules, as I mentioned before. They're found in dimensions, and this is a new one that I'm going to talk about in a little bit, labeling. You can now label dimensions in projects. Those are called global parameters. We'll look at how to make those. And parameters are found in families. So here we have like this height parameter right here is actually a parameter. So let's jump in and talk about each of the types of parameters and take the mystery out of them and put the information in. So first of all, things you probably already know. You've got your instance parameters where you're going to change only the elements that are selected. So for example, you may want to change the sill height. So if you've got a door in a project, but it's actually a couple steps up from the level, you can actually change the sill height of that one door, or if you have a couple selected, those change. Those are your instance parameters. Then you have type parameters, and you're changing all elements of the same type. So you have a door still, but in this case, you might want to change the panel material. these items right here, the cherry, would change for every type. Now, this is also where you want to duplicate type. So if we're coming up here, here's your duplicate command. So if I was going to change that, I probably first would duplicate and create a new type and then change my panel materials and probably even reference that in the name, that they're made of walnut now instead of cherry. And also, just to stay in type parameters for a minute, our system families, that was a component family, our system families are made up of all sorts of type parameters too. And the important thing to remember here is that this is the only place you can actually update these kind of families. So system families, including like walls, floors, ceilings, slabs, in the MEP arena, cable tray, conduit, duct, and pipe types. And then also annotation types. So this is a text over here you can see here. All of those are system families. And so if you are going to create new families, you need to do them actually in the type parameters. So even if you only understand instance and type parameters, you've made big progress in customizing not only the individual elements in your project, but creating new types too. So hopefully everyone has a good feel for these basic parameters in the instance and found in properties, and then in type properties as well, our list of parameters here. Well, let's go ahead then and look at new things, and one of those is our global parameters. Global parameters are also called labels. You can assign them to dimensions, and so you can see here I've got a list of labels here in my Modified Dimensions tab, and over here you'll see that little, what is it, like a pencil or something like that, that will be able to be used. They're project specific, so as opposed to when you say global, that's a little misnomer. They actually are project specific. And they can be associated with elements instance properties, and they can be reported in a formula as well. So I'm going to go through in just a second in Revit and show you how to do that, but we will look at a couple of different dialog boxes. Our new parameters dialog box, where we create the global parameters, and this is going to become very familiar because everything looks very similar to this. All the parameters have some of these options available. And then we'll also look into this one, the global parameters dialog box, and this is where you can actually change the value and add formulas in the parameters. So I'm going to take you now into Revit, and I created just a really simple kind of layout with column grids. So here we are in Revit, and I want to go ahead and use some global parameters with my dimensioning. And let's see, I need to turn off my laser pointer. There we go. So first thing I'm going to do is add some dimensions. Now, typically when I'm adding dimensions, there we go. Let me get into, there, it's running good. When I add dimensions, I typically, start going all the way across. And the problem here is if I apply it to one, it'll apply it to the entire string. So instead of all one dimension, I'm going to create several separate dimensions that I can then use the global parameters on. And I might as well go ahead and dimension these guys too. So here's some dimensions I now want to use global parameters. I select one of the dimensions, and you can see in the Modified Dimensions tab up here on the ribbon, you can see, there you go, we have a label drop down, and I have created one existing parameter right now called Bay A, and I'm going to apply it to the selected dimension. And you can see that it went ahead and changed the length. It was 24 something, and now it's 28. If I come over here and select this one and apply that one to Bay A as well, it moved things over. Now, one thing to kind of watch out about, and you're going to see this happen in a minute, it likes to move from the left to the right, and so it might mess up some of your other parameters as you're going along, and so it depends on how you're working with something. You'll see it happen because it happens when I practice. So I thought it was it'll be a teaching moment, so I will go ahead and do this. Now, what we can do is I have this one label up here, but what if I want to do a different label? So if I come in here and select this one, and I don't want to use bay A, I want to create a second bay dimension, I'll come here to this Create Parameter button. It brings up the global parameter properties. I'm going to call this one Bay B, very intuitive name here. I'm not using this right now as a reporter or anything like that. I do want to group it under dimensions. I'm not going to worry about tooltips. So really all I need right now is the name. And I click OK, and it's now applied to this 36 feet. If I come here, I now have Bay B, and whoops, there it did. Well, it moved it on over this time. So you can see there's that problem I was talking about, that it isn't doing exactly what I was hoping it to do. But we do have now our 2 bays set to that. If I want to set this bay to Bay B, I can do that as well. Or if I want to add an additional bay size, I'll go ahead and do it long. I can go ahead and, again, pick the parameters button, Bay C, click OK, and right now Bay C is the same size as Bay B. Now, what happens, though, if I want to change that? Let's say I want Bay C to be half the size of Bay B or whatever, that situation. I can edit the global parameters. One way to do that is to actually select a dimension that has a parameter and click Edit. That'll bring up my global parameters box, and I can come in here. I can now change these dimensions. Let's see, I'm just going to change that to 20 for a second. Move it over to the side. Let's see, down here maybe. And click Apply. And you can see the 2 places over here where I had the C changed down here. They went to 20. I can also apply a formula. So maybe I want this to be Bay B times 0.5. See what happens when I do that. So it changed to 18, as you can see, which is half of 36. If I now change Bay B to 30 and apply that, everything tightened up. So our first foray into the parameter world is into the global parameters. They're allied with dimensions, and they can be modified as you're working in your project. These are very similar to what you can also do in families. Also, by the way, there is, and I forget which button it is now. Is it this one? Reveal Constraints. There we go. The last button down here, if you can see down in that area, Reveal Constraints shows you where these are. So now you can find out that, oh, all of those have the global parameters assigned to them. It's a nice, helpful thing. Yes, ma'am.
Sorry to interrupt. There was a quick question that you might be able to answer now while you're in the midst of it. Someone wanted to know where the Edit button was that you clicked to change the dimension of Bay C.
Okay, so when I went here and selected my the dimension itself, there's that Edit button. It's that Global Parameters button, and that opens up the Global Parameters dialog box.
Perfect.
And then I hope that's it. Now, one other place you can get it is on the Manage tab. There actually is, there's our project parameters, shared parameters, and global parameters. So you can type GL, you can bring this up. You can create parameters in here. I did it through the dimensions because that's the one you're tending to use the most. But you can actually, that's another way to get to it. And so that's on the, let's see, Manage tab. There we go, Manage tab and global parameters right there.
Okay, great, thank you. I just figured while you were right here.
Yeah, that's probably it was a good time to answer that one.
Okay, thank you.
Good. And I think the biggest thing now is finding ways to use global parameters because it is fairly new. I'll be interested to hear what people have to say about how they're using it in a lot of different areas. So the next parameter, and I am going to move on beyond global parameters, is talk about parameters and schedules. And when you are working in parameters and schedules, they are called fields. So we have this list of available fields you can see right in here. And it always threw me off when I was first learning that, oh, fields equals parameters. I wish they'd just call them available parameters. But that's okay. You know, somebody made that decision years ago, and that's what they are. So that's the biggest thing to remember here. When you are creating your schedule, you are actually selecting parameters that make up the columns in the schedule. Now, we can create new parameters in here. So we actually have access to parameters, and there's 3 different ways we can do them within schedules. And again, I'll show you how to get to them elsewhere, but this is within a schedule. You can create a new parameter. You can add a calculated parameter, which is a formula-based parameter. And new in 2017, you can combine parameters. So when you start a new parameter, you're going to get a dialog box, and you can see that it is similar to what we have here when we were looking at the global parameters. You have this section that's the parameter data. But there's more stuff happening, you know, like in all the little ads on TV. But there's more. So now we're going to be able to do some work with project parameters that can appear in schedules but not in tags, and shared parameters, which are broader, and they can be in schedules and tags. They can be in multiple projects. You can add them in multiple families, and they can also be exported. So instead of, you know, sticking in here, I'm going to bring up, again, Revit and talk about creating some new project parameters. This particular one I'm going to talk about now is not in our book, but it's using a example from our book. Let me get, Mall Edition. There we go. Now, in this particular practice, we've got a Mall Edition. There's a good name for this one. And I'm going to go to the top of slab, and we zoom in on this back entrance. And we're going to work on some doors. So I have 2 different door types here. I have a single flush exterior door, and I have another one that's just a single flush door. It's an interior door. And we're going to make some changes to the schedule, and it's going to make changes to the doors. Now, another important thing to recognize here is I have a dumpster. So dumpsters mean noise and ugliness, so we're going to make a couple changes to our doors surrounding the fact that they are now by a dumpster. I'm coming down here to my door schedule. I created this earlier, just a really simple door schedule, and it already has some things in it. And I'm going to come here to my Fields tab or bring up my Schedule Properties dialog box by clicking on the Fields choice here. And I need to actually create new parameters. So I'm going to come in now to my Schedule Properties dialog box. I'm going to click New Parameter. At the moment, I'm just going to do a project parameter. This isn't something I need to share in tags or anything like that. So I'm going to leave it at project parameter, and I'm going to type in a name. This one I'm going to call glazing. Now, the next thing you decide when you're creating parameters is, are they going to be a type parameter or an instance parameter? And as we talked about earlier, type affects everything, instance impacts just individual ones. So let's say, for example, I want to know about glazing, but I only want to know individual ones. I mean, that may not be realistic, but anyway, I'm going to do it that way. So I'm going to do an instant one so you can see it. I'm going to choose my common discipline, and that's the ones that it doesn't matter what discipline you're in. You know, but if you are doing something structural specific or HVAC or energy, you would choose a different discipline. I'm going to use a type of parameter called yes or no, but there's tons of parameters. So this is actually one of those things that as the more you do, the more you realize how powerful this is, because you can apply things like angle or slope or currency, you know, text, integers and versus numbers. Integers, no decimal places. Numbers can have decimal places. In this case, I'm just going to do a yes-no because you may not have seen one of those before, and I thought it was kind of fun to show. I then choose where I'm going to group the parameter under. And in this case, I'm going to put it in identity data. By default, it went to other. But there's, again, these are all preset, so these you can't add any additional ones of these. But these are preset, and I'm going to use identity data. I'm going to click OK, and OK one more time. And you can see my glazing option has now listed in my door schedule. And it's got a checkbox. By default, these are on. So whenever you add a yes or no, by default, it's on. But what happens if I come in here and I want to turn it off? There's that one's turned off. You'll notice it did not impact any of the other choices. If I come back to my view here that has my doors in it, you can now see my glazing here is listed. That was not listed before. It's now in my instance properties and here. And this one does not have any glazing on it. But if I click this one, you can see that one is checked. That has glazing. Well, let's say I don't really want that one to be glazed either. I can change that. Whereas this one I do want to be glazed. I can force that. I'm definitely saying, yes, I want that one glazed. And yes, I want that one glazed. And then I come back to my door schedule, and you can see now that that information is updated. I'm going to create another field. This time I'm going to do a type parameter, so I'm doing the exact same methodology. This one I'm going to call noise control rating. So we want noise control happening next to the dumpster. So this time I'm going to make it a type. I'm going to make it common. It's going to be text because I'm going to want to type in like an A or a B, something that you can be referenced. This is this level of noise rating. I want to group this again under identity data, and I'm going to click OK. OK one more time. No noise control rating. This time I'm going to come over here and I'm going to click A. It's reminding me that this is now a type parameter, so it's all of my exterior doors are going to be impacted. Sure enough, there we go. And if we come back to our view, here's our door. I don't see that option now here in my identity data, so I have to go to Edit Type, scroll down to Identity Data, and there it is. And I spelled rating wrong. Oh, well, you know what I'm talking about. So let's say these guys here, this is my interior door. If I edit the type, no rating has been applied. Let's go ahead and make that a rating B. It's not as important. It's a storeroom or something like that. And I'm going to click OK here. I'll go back to my schedule, and there the information has been filled in. So that's the next level of creating brand new parameters. You can do it right there in the fields section of your schedule properties, and you can create just in this case, a project parameter. Now, before I leave the schedule dialog box, I want to talk about combining parameters. This is new in 2016, and it allows you to take parameters and group them together in one thing. So instead of having separate height, let's see, we're going to come into this dialog box in a minute. So here we go, like height and width. I have existing height and width. Can make it one door size parameter. And so let's look at that, how that one looks in this particular one as well. So in this case, I want to show you another way of doing it. I could actually come right here to this Combine Parameters button and do Combine Parameters, but I want to show you that it's also available in the ribbon while you're in a schedule view. So here's Combine Parameters. Now I'm going to replace height. So I'm selecting my height. I'm now clicking Combine Parameters, and it brings up this dialog box. If you've done labels, by the way, this is very similar to labels. I want my combined parameter name to be door size. And then I can choose from all of the parameters that are available. And by the way, let's just notice that glazing is available and noise control is in there somewhere. There it is, noise control rating, misspelled. Those are both in there now because they're now part of your doors. And again, I don't think I said this earlier, but anytime you add parameters in a schedule, it's automatically added to the categories that you're working in. So in this case, I was working in doors, so these were automatically applied to all doors. Let's go on in here, though. I want to find height. There's our height. I can either double-click, or I'm coming down here to width. I click on it and then click this add parameter right in here. And then I'm going to go ahead and just add thickness. You know, it's not really something you would put in, but it's good to see a difference in how you actually add these things. Now, even though I have height and width already in here, I can still use those parameters, and that's the way that when you're doing a combined parameter. Another thing to watch out, though, with combined parameters is what is it going to look like? Well, by default, there's these little separators that are just slashes. I want to change it so that it is separated, whoops, there we go, by X's, and that there's nothing on the end. I don't need anything on the end. But you can see now it's still kind of tight. You can put in spaces. So I'm putting in a space before and after each of these X's, and that's going to look a little bit better. So now my height by width by thickness has an X. My new parameters are set up, combined parameters. There's my door size. I don't need the width parameter anymore, so I'm just going to come into my Fields tab, select it, and remove it back. So there I have my new door schedule with glazing, noise control, and my door size. The next thing I want to do is talking about calculated parameters. So this, again, is in schedules, and I'm going to still come back to the same project in just a second. And in this case, we have two different kinds of schedules or parameters we can create. We can create formulas, and we can create percentages. And in this particular practice, I want to actually show you the formulas basis because it's more complex. It's, you know, the creating the percentage isn't hard at all. I'm actually, in this case, using one of our practices. I'm going to start the practice. I'm not going to do the full thing. But we're going to create some complex schedules and a material takeoff schedule in Revit. So I'm going to actually start from scratch and come in here and create a new material takeoff schedule. I'm coming down into my project browser, and I'm right-clicking and using Create New Material Takeoff. I just prefer to go that way. You can do it in the ribbon, but it's kind of quick and gets you where you need to go. You can set your filter list. In this case, I need my architectural filter list, and I'm going to select walls. Like I'm having to look at my notes here. It's like, okay, I want to be a wall. But I'm going to do a specific material. So I have brick walls in here, so I want my brick material takeoff that I'm going to be creating in this case. Now, in this, we're back into looking at our available fields. And when you do a material takeoff schedule, there are additional parameters you can use that all have the word material as the beginning of their name. So those aren't necessarily available otherwise. So you need to create a material takeoff schedule to get these. So I'm going to add in my existing parameters for material name, area, manufacturer, cost. So these are ones that I'm going to need when some of them are just part of the start of it, like the name. But I'm actually now going to create a formula, and in that formula I'm going to need information such as the area and the cost to create my formulas. So I come down here, choose Add Calculated Parameter, and I'm going to create one for total cost per square foot. This is in imperial units. I wish we were metric, but we aren't yet. So all you metric people out there, you'll see what's up. anyway, we're doing our square foot. I'm doing a formula. I can choose my discipline again, and in this case, I am still going to be doing just a common one. And then what kind of information am I calculating? And I'm going to do a number as opposed to an integer. An integer, again, you remember, rounds off, whereas a number is going to give me, you know, the full amount of decimal places that's needed. And then I have a place for my formula. Now, I can type my formula, and I'm going to use parentheses because you have, and just like any kind of mathematical formula, you put things in parentheses that you want to happen first. So first of all, I'm going to have it material colon area divided by 1. And with this 1, it's because my material area and my material cost are different kinds of parameters that this is just what you have to do to get them to talk to each other. So I do that. Then I'm going to do material cost. Now, I just did something wrong, and you're going to see when I click OK. The following is not a valid schedule field, material cost. It's like, well, I know there is one, but guess what? There's a space missing. And so instead of me having to remember about that space, it's really helpful to use this Browse button. It gives a list of the fields that are already in your schedule that you can use. I can select material cost. And then I click OK, and now I have one that's going to work with my material cost. Let me just do another one for you. Again, I'm hitting my calculated value. I'm going to do another formula, total units of brick. This one's going to, again, be a number, common. And this time, instead of trying to type, I'll put in my parentheses, because remember, we need to do that material area divided by 1 to get our different parameters talking to each other. And then the rest of this one is just a number. We looked it up and found out the number of units of bricks in a standard thing that you would buy. You need it times 7, so that's where that number comes from. And it gives me the information. I'm going to click OK, and here's my brick material takeoff. Now, in this case, I didn't do some other things I should have, like sorting and grouping. So let's just real quickly get that, because otherwise you really can't see. So I'm going to sort and group by material name, not itemize. Get my footer in here. And and let me just click OK here so you can see this. So I've got some more things happening. Let's see, filter. Okay, there's the other one. My material name is going to be, I need it to be the brick. There it is, masonry brick. I didn't want everything. Check and make sure that's looking good. There we go. That's what I wanted us to see. So we have that information. And then finally, we notice that there's nothing showing up right now in my total cost per square foot or my area. I know I've got information in there. This is something else that's new in 2016, and I'm going to select these 3 right here. They're not showing any calculation. As you can see right down in here, so show no calculation. I want it to calculate totals. By default in the past, there was a calculate totals on, and it's not any longer. So you need to choose to calculate totals. So that if you are running into problems there, let's make sure I've got calculate totals. Okay, there we go. We have information. We have a few too many decimal places, but hey, it'll do for what we want right now. But you can see here now that we've created 2 new calculated parameters that use existing parameters like the cost and the area to create the new parameter that you're working with right there. Okay, so that's a lot of information really fast, but we're going to move on to bigger project parameters and also into shared parameters. So what I've shown you right now is I've actually started from schedules, and that is as easy of a way to do it. It's how I was introduced to parameters, and I didn't even know you could do them elsewhere until, quite a bit later when I had to write that section of the book. And so anyway, we didn't, but there are additional ways to create project parameters, and when you do that, you can also use shared parameters. And we're going to take a look at this dialog box, and I am going to do this through another one of our practices. And this is, again, a practice from our BIM manual. This one's from a structural project, and it's going to show us the project parameters and the shared parameters and why you need to use those. So back into Revit. Let me just get out of some schedules, save this. And I'm going to open up Events Plaza. And what we've got here is basically a whole bunch of structural columns. There's one down there. It's a built-up column, structural columns. And we want to be able to put in some tags on here that have parameters that we don't yet have connected. And we also want to be able to create a schedule that has that information. So we need to, in that case, we're ultimately going to be using our shared parameters. First of all, I'm going to start by going to my Manage tab here. And remember, there's the project parameters, shared parameters, and global parameters. We're going to start in project parameters. Parameters that are available in the project, we've got one that's kind of like a default one that's still available, but we can add more. So I'm going to add a project parameter to this project. So right now, this is only going to be available in the project. But instead of just making it in the project, I'm going to create a shared parameter. So this will, when I make this shared parameter, it's going to be shared by multiple projects and families. Again, as I mentioned, can be exported and create schedules and tags. You'll notice that this area right here has grayed out, so you no longer have that option, though we will be able to choose type or instance in just a sec. Another thing that, that's important in this case is we're going to assign it to our category. It's not already assigned. So instead of, if we had gone through a schedule and it was a column schedule, it would already have known that we're going to put it in a column, and we wouldn't have had this option. So let's, first of all, I'm going to come here and I'm going to select the shared parameters. Now, with shared parameters, there's an additional thing that's a shared parameter file. And, oops, it doesn't have, the one that I was using I deleted. That doesn't help matters. So we need to create a new parameter file. So I'm going to come here and click Create. These are text files, but you don't actually make them yourself. You use the existing, or you use this method, and then it creates it for you. So I'm going to call this one Plaza Parameters. And only one parameter file can be associated in a project at a time. So that's something to also be aware of. And most of the time, general public isn't going to create these shared parameters. This is something that your BIM manager will create and then you will use. But everyone needs to, it helps to have an understanding of how it actually works. The first thing I need to do is create a parameter group, and that just saves you, if you have a ton of parameters in your parameter file, this gives you access to the ones that you need the most. And so I'm going to create one called Column. So I now have a new parameter group that's in here. And now I'm ready to create new parameters. I click New, and this is similar to what we've seen before in our global parameters and the parameters that we set up within the schedule. And this time it's limited what we can do. I'm going to give it a name called Bracket Type. It's going to be common. It's going to be text. And I'm going to click OK. So in this case, really all I'm doing is assigning, if you can see back behind here, the parameter data. I'm assigning that in this shared parameter file. So I'm going to create another one. I'm going to do new. This one's going to be offset. Capitalization is important, and it's because if you do use this parameter in something else, it needs to be known. So just be aware when you create parameter properties or the name, it's very important exactly what you've named it, as we saw earlier when I typed in the wrong name. Okay, this is an offset. This is a length. And I'm going to do one last one, and I'll do bracket finish. And this one's going to be a material. So now I've got these shared parameters, and they are in my parameter box here, and so they're actually in that shared parameter file. That's saved automatically when I did it. But they aren't yet in my project. So let's say that you chose an existing parameter file and you see this list of parameters. You didn't have to create them all new. This is what you still need to be doing from this point on. So let's say, for example, I'm going to go ahead and select my bracket type in this list and click OK. And, that's right, I needed to finish that first part. That was OK. Now I'm ready to click, now to select it and put it in my parameter properties choice here. I click OK. You can now see that parameter data from the shared parameter file is now in here. I can't change those three things. Those three things right there are set up in my my shared parameters file. But I can select whether it's going to be a type or an instance parameter and how it's going to be used and what group it's going to be under. So in this case, I'm going to put this under other, and we're going to just, so all these are just going to be in the same group under. That'll just make it easier for us to find it. It's going to be an instance category. And I'm going to come up here now and select my categories. I need to be in structure, and I need to select structural columns. So I'm going to structure. And by the way, just real quick, this is kind of a neat little thing. So I'm up here in analytical columns. I need structural columns. It's near the end of the alphabet. As long as I've clicked in there, and then I just type S, it moved me down to the S's. So if you didn't know that little trick, it's a very handy one. So I'm going to assign this to structural columns. In this case, I don't need to assign it to anything else, but I could assign it to similar values that are there as well. I'm going to click OK, and you can see now bracket type is available to elements in this project. Let me go ahead and add those other two in so we can see how it happens. Add. I want a shared parameter. I need to select my shared parameter file. I'm going to use now the bracket. I actually have it already, so that's nice. I don't have to go through all those extra dialog boxes. I already have my parameter file set up. I already have my groups available. I'm going to now select the next one I want, click OK. Same information here. I am putting this also in my other group, and make sure that it is in my structural columns, and click OK. 2 down, 1 more to go. Shared parameter, select. I already have a shared parameter file connected. Select the shared parameter I want to use, click OK, make sure I group it under where I want it to be and whether or not it's an instance or a type, and select the category, columns, and click OK. So now these are available. I'm going to click OK, and I'm going to select a column here and look down into my other, and there we go. I have the choices right here, bracket type, bracket offset from base, and bracket finish. if I also create a schedule, that I could put those in the schedule. But the really cool part about this is, well, why did I go through all that crazy shared parameter stuff if all I needed it was in a schedule? There's no reason to. So if it's just in a schedule, you don't need to worry about that. But here's where it really gets cool. I'm going to put it in a tag as well as a schedule. Let me save this guy. I'm going to open an existing tag that I created a little bit earlier, column bracket tag. And I have a label right in here. This is just a hold its place label. And I'm going to change this label out, and I want to be able to use those shared parameters in this label. So I'm going to double click on this and edit the label. And you can see here I have mark. That was just, I had just had that as a placeholder, so I'll stick that back here. But now if I come down here and find, I'm looking, okay, do I have my brackets? Well, they don't automatically come in. But here's my lovely little thing, add parameter, the same little add parameter button we've seen before. But this one comes in, and here's your interesting thing. Because I'm in a tag family, it knows I can't create a project parameter. Well, I'm not in a project, I'm in a tag in the family. So I can only use shared parameters. So I come in here, I now come here and hit select. Once I've got a shared parameter file associated with anything, that's the default. So again, I don't have to go in and make all this again. All of this is ready. It's ready for me to go. And I'm going to go ahead and click bracket type, click OK. My parameter data is automatically put in by default. I don't have any way to do anything more than just select this shared parameter. And now I can bring my bracket type over. I'm going to actually make this one have all three of it in here. So I'm going to add my parameter, select my shared parameter file. Let's see, which one do I want next? Bracket offsite set from base. OK. Put that over. And I'm going to create my one last one. Once again, I'm selecting it from my shared parameter file. Click OK again and move it on over. Now, oh yeah, I knew there was something else I need to check. See this little break thing here? So it's similar to when we combined parameters before, that little X, we changed from a slash to an X. So we want to break. We don't want these all to be in a long line. We want them one on top of the other. So I put the two breaks for between the first two. And there's my bracket type. It's not necessarily going to fit really perfectly, but we'll see how it looks. So I'm going to save this, and I'm going to load it into a project right here. And now I can tag using this. So I'm going to use the tag command. Is it already on? Yes, it is. Good. Let me zoom in here and tag one. There we go. So here's my columns. Nothing's showing up, and that's just because there's nothing that's in the column information. So I'll just come in here and say grab A, offset from base 12 feet, bracket finish, brushed. Up, close. Didn't like my material. I can't use asphalt. That would be bad. Let's do copper. There's my information. All right, and so there it is. And now at the moment, it's only showing copper, and I'm not sure exactly what I did with that. It's possible I didn't add. Oh, that's because I didn't actually save it. 12A. There we go. There we go. So like I said, I didn't work to get my tag looking really perfect, but there's the information. These were instance parameters as opposed to type parameters. So that means all of these babies would need to be selected, but of course you can do that much quicker by selecting multiple and adding the same information to more than one. You can find the common information. Right now the tags are selected too. So if you see a situation like I just got, I can't do anything. There. Now my structural columns are the ones that are selected. and I can add in information that I need to here. And just apply. You can see it came into those. So in this case, I just showed you a little bit about that shared parameters. We can see how important it can be to use these when you want them to be in tags and in schedules, but no reason to do it if they don't need to be in both. So that's just something to remember there. So I have been talking a mile a minute, but I do want to make sure we have covered what I said we would. So I reviewed the instance and type parameters in our existing component and system families. I looked how to constrain model elements using global parameters with dimensions. We created project parameters and combined parameters within the schedule dialog box, and we added shared parameters to be used in tags and schedules. So that's what I wanted to do today, and I know we are almost at the top of the hour, so I do want Corrine to tell us, or actually I can tell you a few more things first, and just about our books that are coming out, and then I'm going to have Corrine finish off what she has to say. So basically all of our Revit training guides are out now. So this is all our 2017 guides. We have everything that's in both imperial and metric units. BIM management, the one we just looked at here, is what I was working on today primarily to show you that information. Of course, we have Revit collaboration tools, project managers, which is a compilation, by the way, of several of these books, but kind of focused on what project managers need. And then we also have, of course, all of our fundamentals books for architecture, MEP, and structure, and additional architectural books for conceptual design and visualization, and site and structural design. And by the way, even though we focus Revit architecture on conceptual design and visualization, the information in there can be used by other groups as well. So it's not, exclusive to Revit architecture, but it's the primary use. And I'm excited to announce, coming soon, we're going to have Autodesk Revit for landscape architecture. I'm working on that as we speak. Well, not as we speak, because as we speak, I'm talking about parameters. But it was an important part of what I'm doing in Revit landscape, because Revit architecture is not exactly the same as landscape architecture. So we're working on some new things for that. So that's what I have to say. And so, Corrine, take it away and tell us some more.
Great, thanks, Martha. So just very quickly, so we're getting to the top of the next hour here, I just wanted to highlight all the different products that we do offer, the various formats, I should say, in which we have our courseware. So all those books, plus all the other books that ASCENT authors, are available in a printed book, which is, if you buy it from our website or our e-store, the ASCENT e-store, it's spiral bound like this. We also are selling most of our products now on Amazon as well, and that's a slightly smaller book size with the perfect binding. So it's just that's the way they format their books, so a little bit different. So you have some options there, which is nice. We also offer ebooks and video-enhanced ebooks. So again, same great content, includes the practice files. It's just a matter of which way you prefer learning. Do you like to have the hard copy book in front of you, or are you comfortable having another monitor up and running, or an iPad or something like that with the ebook or video enhanced ebook on it? We also sell e-learning bundles, and we do have one for Revit where you can get fundamentals through to advanced courses, and that's for all self-paced online learning. We have instructor tools, which are great for people teaching the class, depending on the course. I'm not sure, Martha, which instructor tools you get with the Revit, with the BIM management, template and family creation.
Yeah, I don't know either. I'm not sure that I got the PowerPoints out for that this year. It got out for a lot of other things, but I don't think I got it for BIM management.
So no, okay, but you definitely would get the timing suggestions when if you are delivering the course, and of course answers to all the questions that are within the book you get with the instructor tools. And then for larger purchases, we have digital site licenses. So if you are an instructor, or if you're working in a bookstore at a school or something, and you need hundreds of copies of our books, then this is an option for you where you get to control your own printing. And then lastly, on the last slide there, Martha, I just wanted to show everyone the websites where they can purchase our books. If you flip to the next slide, there we go. So you can go through our ASCENTestore.com, or you can get through that, you can get to the e-store from our website, which is the bottom link there, ASCENTed, ASCENTed.com. And as I mentioned, we're on Amazon as well. You can search for us. If you have any feedback about our books or about the webcast or different topics you'd like to hear about, this one generated a lot of questions, so we might even need a part 2 for this webcast. But let us know. Send us an email at feedback@ascented.com. We'd love to hear from you. And please follow us on Twitter. And we have a blog where our authors, such as Martha, will post blog posts. And I think Martha and I had talked about this before the call. Martha will be doing a follow-up blog to this webcast, which will answer and address some of your questions. And we do have quite a few we won't be able to get to today, so watch out for that blog, hopefully in January. I think, Martha, you said you could have one. Right. So, yeah, and that would answer some of these questions. So we are on the social media there. Please do follow us, and thank you very much